Hi folks, Jeff here again from JPR Leatherworks. Hey, I released a video a couple of weeks ago, I guess, in which I had just gotten my final one of my Bevelers from a company called Owden, and I was showing this to you. I was just really remarking at how great this thing was, and I mentioned in that video that I was really looking for there's a sharpening jig that you can use for this. The folks from Owden got in touch with me and generously sent along the sharpening jig, because I'd mentioned in the video that I wasn't able to get them anywhere. So they sent it to me. They also sent along something else I'd mentioned, the French edge beveler, or sometimes called a shovel beveler, or they refer to it as a wide mouth beveler. And then they also send along a bunch of other things. Very generous company, great people to work with, and I really like their tools. And they asked me to review them, and so I'm doing that, and I thought I would just take a look and start with these two. So this is the Owden jig for sharpening your bevelers and for the French beveler that would go right along here. So let me open this up. And it comes with some sandpaper even to use. So let's take a look at this. So basically it's all arranged for the number 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5, and then the French beveler. So let me grab my bevelers here. They can roll all over the desk like they tend to do. There's my set. I think I've got them in order. Yep, so that's the number 1. And the way we're going to do this, basically, maybe I should have left them where they were. We're just going to put the sandpaper down and drag it along like this. So this is already reasonably sharp. Let me grab a piece of scrap here. This is already reasonably sharp. It's not getting that. This is too thick a leather. Anyway, but let's go ahead and hone it. We don't need to sharpen this. We're just going to hone it. So I'm just going to lay this paper that they provided. And by the way, if you don't have that, or if you run out of that, which I eventually will, I just use 1000 grit wet dry sandpaper. And I just cut a little strip about like this. And I'm just going to pour this out. I don't know if you can see me very well. I'm trying to hold the sandpaper there. But then just smooth it out like that. And I'm not sure what grit this sandpaper is. It seems like it's even a higher rating than 1000 is my guess. But that's all there is to sharpening it, or honing it really is what I'm doing in this case. They've provided over here on this side a piece of leather to kind of clean off the dust and grit. And then you can do that. And you can go on up with I won't bother doing all of them, but I'll just run up. The number 4 I mentioned in last video was one which I'd been using and was due for some honing, and I haven't done that yet. So now's a good time to do that. So once again, get my finger out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I just put it on there and drag it back. Don't go back and forth. Don't go like this. Just go this way. Keep doing that. And that's going to turn into a really nice edge. Yep. Just takes off clean stuff. Yeah, that is super nice. Having that, because In the past, I think I mentioned in my last video, I used a jig like this, which is an old piece of wire that I would coat with some jeweler's rouge. And of course, this isn't the right size for this one, but I just do the same thing with that. And it's okay, but you can see, as much as I tried to get it straight, it's a little bit off, and it's messy. This is really nice. And by the way, you shouldn't have to do this many times. Just a few passes, unless you're trying to sharpen it, which I'm not. These are already remarkably sharp. And that strip will be, I'll just reuse that many times. So I'll just keep those together. I'm going to leave that sit here for a minute. I'm going to put these out of the way, because those bevelers have this tendency to roll all over my desktop, my workspace, and get in the way. So I'll just set them out of the way for a second. I'm going to leave that right there because I also want to take a look at this. This is the French edge, or the shovel, or the wide mouth, however you want to call it, beveler. It's also considered a skiver, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But, you know, I got to tell you, I'm always impressed with the packaging that Owden puts around these things. I have bought some pretty expensive tools from pretty famous brand makers, and they usually just show up in a plastic bag. The tools themselves look really nice, but they just show up like that. And I know it doesn't make that much difference in the long run. It just shows an attention to detail that I'm starting to associate with Owden. So there is that shoveler, that French edge beveler. I'm just going to take this out of this nice protective coating. I can tell already, I just touched it, it's sharp. That's another thing that I've gotten used to coming from Owden, is their tools are sharp right out of the gate. Most of the tools that I get, at least cutting tools, I end up having to sharpen. But I haven't had to sharpen anything yet when it came straight out of the box from Owden. We'll see. I'm not saying that will always be true, but at least not so far. That's a pain to get out, but it's a piece of sandpaper, not a big deal. Okay, so that is a beautiful tool. I love that dark ebony handle. Again, just like their bevelers, there's a slight curve in the hand, in the blade, the cutting part, so that your hand, if I've got my eyes closed and I pick it up that way, pick it up upside down, I can tell right away. It just feels wrong. When I put it in my hand and it's correct, it just feels good. That's a nice feel. Fits nicely in my hands. I've got a little bigger hands than most people, so you'll have to see how it is with yours. But that's a nice feel. Now let's bevel something. So how can I do that? I'll do it this way. This is a little awkward angle for me, but it'll make it easier to see for you. And when you're using a French beveler, there's some play here. So you need to decide the angle you want. And then what you're going to do is you're going to rest one prong down on your hard surface. Always do this on a hard surface. And the other prong up in here. And the width, the distance you put this blade here, left and right, is going to determine the angle of your cut. So as you move it up steeper, of course, it'll be a steeper cut. As you move it out there, I'll do both extremes so you can see the difference. But I'm just going to leave it all the way out there. You just make sure you leave the one prong on the marble, the granite, the hard surface, whatever you're using. That is an amazing cut. That is just amazing. Now that was with the angle at very steep angle. Now let's cut another edge, and I'll do it at the shallowest angle where the beveler is barely on. So you're going to cut a shallower angle. I didn't get that very straight. But for a beveler, using that as a beveler is really good. There are other ways you can use this tool, and I'm going to say I'm impressed with how sharp this is. Sometimes I have a piece of leather and I need to fold it in half. All right? And if you work with leather, you've noticed it doesn't fold in half very easily. It's not natural for it. And so you can put a groove in the middle where you're going to fold it. And that's just using this French beveler, not as a beveler, but as a groover. That is just sharp and smooth. And then, of course, when you go to fold that leather now, it's going to fold much easier. Now, one other thing, I'll show you down on this edge here where I haven't touched it. Quite often I want to skive the edge of a piece of leather. And so I'll traditionally take my skiving knife and just use it this way, this way. So I'll make a line and then just skive with it. But you can also use a French shovel nose skiver. What I do is I'll take my wing divider and I'll set it. Normally I'd measure this out carefully, but it doesn't really matter. And I'll just set a line in my leather to determine the width of the skive, or to demark anyway, the width of the skive. And I don't know if you can see that very well, but I've just put in a mark right there for the skive. Now what I can do is you use it like a beveler in a sense, but I'm just going to go further. Wow, that's great cut. So I'll kind of combine the two marks, or the two methods I just showed you. In this case, I'm just putting this left prong right up on that line I just created and dig out. Go down to whatever depth I want. And I've just used that as a skiver. And I've skived that edge. I haven't finished it off, of course. I'm not showing you how to skive right now. But you can skive that down to any degree you want. You've got a lot of control over this. And the trouble I've found when I try to do skiving with a with a skiving knife is sometimes it's not very even. Now that's probably my fault rather than the knife's fault. But that is a nice, clean skive. Let me show you just the opposite. If I use that same setting, I'll grab my wing dividers here, and I set it to the same place. And I try to skive that with my skiving knife. It's harder to get in there and do it right. It'll take a lot more patience. A lot of people will skive with the cut facing up towards the sky, and it is easier. It does give an easier cut, but it doesn't give as good of a cut. Well, let me just show you that. And you can see right away I'm putting a lot more work into this than I did with the French beveler. And it's leaving the edge a little bit rough. Now, I want to be the first to admit that's my problem, not the knife's problem. That's because I'm not that great at using this tool. So when I do skiving like that, I normally don't use this tool for this kind of skiving. I use it for something else, skiving. But I can just take my French beveler here and clean that up. That's just a really nice tool. That really is. It would be great if they would offer it in different sizes as well. Let's see. That is, what is that? I'm guessing that's a 5. No, it's closer to an 8. 7, I would guess. The inside dimensions are about a 7. It'd be nice if they'd offer that in different sizes, a little bit narrower and a little bit wider. But still, that's just a beautiful tool. It's good to look at, it's good to hold, and most importantly, it really does the job. Finally, let's just use this. I'll use this piece of paper, the sandpaper they sent to me. And on this sharpener, there's this ridge right here that's designed for my shovel nose. So I will again just set that over there. I have to pinch it a little bit to make sure I'm getting to the right place. Then I will just draw this back and start to hone that edge. And you can do both sides. That is just a handy little tool. That sharpener just makes my life so much easier. And then I can go back to work beveling and skiving using that tool. It's just clean and easy. Yep. I'll tell you what, folks. I'm not doing commercials for Owden, but I have yet to open up a tool that I couldn't use right out of the package without any further honing or sharpening. Of course, they need honing as the days go by, but I've yet to open up a tool and not just use it straight out of the box. It's a quality company. They really seem to pay a lot of attention to detail, and it's beautiful wood, beautiful brass, beautiful steel. I've got to find out, because I don't know for sure, what kind of steel this is. But it sure feels hard. Feels like a good, hard steel. I'm going to have to send an email and ask them the question, what that is. There, I'll set it up, display like it's pretty in a store. Anyway, folks, thanks very much for watching this review. I've got other things I'm going to be reviewing that came in the box, that same box from them. I like it. It's a great set of tools so far. My goal here is to give you honest reviews. I'm not going to lie and tell you that this stuff is great if it's not. But so far, it has been. I'm quickly becoming a strong believer in these tools from this company. Everything else that I've gotten, so far I've gotten 5 different bevelers, edge bevelers. I've gotten this tool, the French beveler, the little sanding or sharpening jig, and I've also previously gotten some strap end punches and used those. Every one of those so far have been just wonderful. So I will leave you, and in the next video we'll pick up and review a couple other things. So thanks for watching.